Hi Year 11, I hope you're all keeping safe, keeping well in these difficult times. Thank you to all of you who've carried on getting work into me over the last couple of weeks. It's been really good quality work, so I'm really pleased with that. Keep that going, really pleased with you all. If you have any issues or any questions, just send me an email. You've all got my email address. But thank you for the quality of the work that's been coming into me. It's really good. Today's video, I'm going to be talking about why the Oslo Peace Accords happened, what brought them about, what caused them. I'll do another video on the actual peace accords themselves over the next couple of weeks, talking about what was agreed, etc. But this video is talking about what brought about the Oslo Peace Accords in 1993. So I'll try and be as quick as I can because there's a lot of stuff to cover and I don't want to talk for too long. The first cause of the Oslo Peace Accords that I want to talk about was the First Intifada. And the First Intifada causes the Oslo Peace Accords for two reasons, really. One, Israel's reputation takes a real hammering. The way the Israeli army have dealt with the First Intifada, clubbing the protesters and sometimes shooting them, who've been throwing stones at them. Israel's reputation takes a real hammering around the world. The world media really turns on them and says, well, look at the way Israel have dealt with these often teenagers who were, doing the stone throwing from the Palestinian side. Look at how the Israeli army have dealt with them. Vicious, brutal, horrible. And Israel's reputation, as I say, really does take a hammering. It's really damaged by this. Even in America, there are lots of Americans who, as we know, America have been quite pro-Israel. The USA have been the big financial and military backers of Israel up until now. Even in America, Israel's reputation really is damaged. On the flip side, the First Intifada also leads to the PLO changing their aims. Now, the PLO, as we know, had the mantra or the policy of the destruction of Israel. Let's destroy Israel, completely wipe it away, retake the land as Palestine, a big unified Palestine as it should be in their eyes. That had been their policy up until now, the destruction of Israel. We're not going to recognise Israel, Israel has no right to exist, etc, etc. But after the first, or during the First Intifada, and certainly after, they changed their aims and they think, well, actually, we're more likely to achieve something if we negotiate, if we recognise Israel, so we recognise it as a nation, recognise its right to exist, then we can get full independence of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. It's not what we originally wanted, but maybe we have to compromise here. So that's another effect of the First Intifada, and another thing that kind of pushes both sides towards the Oslo Peace Accords. Israel are worried about their reputation. I think they need to kind of extend an olive branch, really, and the Palestinians, or the PLO, thinking, well, actually, let's change our aims a little bit. We'd rather achieve something than achieve nothing. Another cause, or another thing that brought about the Oslo Peace Accords, was the Gulf War. Now, obviously, you've studied this in lessons, so I'm not going to go into masses of detail, but remember that Iraq had invaded Kuwait, very small nation next to Iraq, oil rich, full of oil, very rich country, small country but rich country. Iraq had invaded Kuwait, and the USA responded to this act of aggression by the Iraqis, or by Saddam Hussein, who was the Iraqi president. They respond with military force. They go in with a coalition, so a team of several countries, including several from the Middle East. So, first time that Middle Eastern countries have got involved with the USA in a conflict. For example, some of the ones that we've looked at already, Syria and Egypt, they both join in with this anti-Iraq coalition, this pro-US coalition, to expel the Iraqis from Kuwait, and it's successful. And it showed that the USA wasn't the enemy, really. Obviously, America, as I said before, have been Israel's big backers. They've been seen as pro-Israel and therefore anti-Arab. Well, here they're helping out in a Middle Eastern conflict with Arab countries. So suddenly a lot of the other Arab nations go, maybe the USA aren't all that bad. So it boosts up the USA's reputation in the Middle East. It also, the Gulf War, improves Israel's reputation. And that's because during the Gulf War, Saddam Hussein, leader of Iraq, had attacked Israel with missiles. And Israel didn't respond to these missile attacks. They didn't send an army into Iraq. They didn't fire missiles back themselves. They didn't do anything. They didn't retaliate. Now, that was really, really good for the USA and for Israel in the long run, because had Israel responded and retaliated and attacked Iraq, then many of the Arab nations who were joining in with the USA might have thought, are we on the right side here? Because here is Israel attacking an Arab nation, if they'd responded. Are we on the right side? Should we be joining in with the USA, or have we got on the wrong side? Should we actually be helping out Iraq? So the fact that Israel didn't do anything, they didn't retaliate, really helped both the USA and Israel, again, boost their reputations in the Middle East. So that's another reason why the Oslo Peace Accords come about. On the other side of that, in the Gulf War, Yasser Arafat and the PLO damaged their reputation because they side with Iraq. And in fact, when these missiles are kind of dropping down in Israel, it's cheered by Palestinians in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. And it really does damage the reputation of the PLO and Yasser Arafat, because they're seen as being pro-aggression, basically, especially when the Israelis don't respond with any force. It also leads to Arab countries in the Middle East withdraw their funding from the PLO. So when the PLO support Iraq, countries like Saudi Arabia, who have got involved with the USA to try and get Iraq out of Kuwait, stop funding the PLO. Now, Saudi Arabia is a very rich country. They've been funding the PLO, been giving them a lot of money, and the PLO start to run out of money very quickly after this, because suddenly their big backers in the Middle East aren't giving them any money anymore. So that's another reason why the Oslo Peace Accords kind of come about, because the PLO are suddenly thinking, oh dear, it's actually in our best interest here to try and make some kind of peace deal, because our reputation's been damaged, running out of money, etc. So they're even more eager to secure some kind of peace deal. Also, the PLO had lost the backing in 1991 of the USSR. So at the same time as they lose the backing of Saudi Arabia, etc., as a part of the Gulf War, they also lose the backing of the USSR for different reasons. Now, the USSR, as we know from the earlier on in the course, had been providing the PLO with a lot of money and a lot of weaponry. Okay, just like they'd been helping out Egypt during the Suez Crisis, etc. The USSR have been helping out the PLO. They've been their biggest source, really, of money and weaponry. Now, the USSR broke up in 1991 at the end of the Cold War. And when it broke up, the Cold War ended, the PLO, as I say, have lost their main superpower support, because now it's just the USA. The USA are the world's superpower now, from 1991, once the USSR have broken up. The USA have won the Cold War, because the USSR don't exist anymore. And now the PLO are like, oh dear, we haven't got any major superpower on our side now. Israel still do, but we don't. Well, I say Israel still do, because actually Israel, from this point on, the USA look at Israel and go, we don't really need Israel anymore. We've needed Israel up until now because they've been kind of our ally in the Middle East. The Arab countries have been siding with the USSR, and Israel have been siding with us, and they've been kind of our little foothold, if you will, in the Middle East. We don't need them anymore now because there's no threat of the USSR. So actually Israel do start to think, oh, again, maybe we should make some kind of peace deal here, because the USA aren't guaranteed to back us anymore. And in fact, there's a lot of pressure from America to Israel saying, look, it's about time you made some kind of peace here, because again, we're not guaranteed to, sail in and help you anymore like we have done in the past. I also forgot to mention as well that when the USSR broke up, about 200,000 Jews who lived in the USSR then emigrated to Israel, which, Jewish immigration to Israel has been a problem, inverted commas, for the Palestinians throughout this period. They've been going, the more Jews that move in there, the harder it is for us to retake the land. And this is especially true in this instance. When these 200,000 Jews arrive in Israel, they actually start to settle, many of them, in the West Bank and Gaza, so the areas where the PLO want to make independent. And Yasser Arafat thinks the more Jews who come in and settle in these areas, the harder it's going to be for us to negotiate their full independence, because the Israelis will go, well, hang on, there's tons of Jews in these areas, we're not going to give this land to you, because all these Jews will either have to stay there under your rule, and they won't want that, or they're going to have to emigrate then into Israel, which will be obviously smaller because we've given up some land. So again, the PLO think we need to negotiate a peace very quickly and try and get the Gaza Strip and the West Bank before any more Jewish people emigrate into them. And so that's another reason why the end of the Cold War kind of leads on to the Oslo Peace Accords, because again, both sides are thinking it's in our best interest to kind of hold some kind of peace talks here. Another reason why the Oslo Peace Accords come about is because the Israelis think, well, the PLO are a lot more moderate than other Palestinian groups, such as Hamas. It's in our best interest to negotiate with the PLO because they actually do want to talk to us. Hamas don't. Remember, Hamas, who've been formed after the conflict in Lebanon, Hamas do not want to negotiate with Israel at all, whereas the PLO do. So again, Israel are thinking if we can negotiate with the PLO, again, it'll boost our reputation a little bit, it'll bring us closer to peace, and they're our way into some kind of peace deal. We can't negotiate with Hamas because they refuse to, and in fact from 1993 Hamas start to use suicide bombers to attack Israel. So again, the pressure's up there where Israel are thinking we need to negotiate some kind of peace, please most of the Palestinians. Obviously we won't please Hamas, but we can please all the others if we negotiate some kind of peace deal. And finally, one other reason why the Oslo Peace Accords happen or come about is because in June 1992, Israel had a new prime minister, a man called Rabin, who was a lot more willing to compromise with the PLO and with Palestine, provided they helped call off the first Intifada that was still going on. So Rabin is another kind of key figure in bringing about the Oslo Peace Accords. Arafat on the Palestinian side and Rabin on the Israeli side. Okay, there's more information about him in the textbook. Right, 12 minutes, wasn't too long. Obviously, again, there's way more detail on that in the textbook. I've just flown through, but hopefully it's cleared up a few. I know a few of you are having a few issues trying to get that all in your brains, especially with me not being there in lesson. But hopefully that has helped you understand why these peace accords happen in 1993. I will do another video talking about the actual peace accords themselves and what was agreed, etc., and the consequences of them as well. But as I say, hopefully that's cleared up some issues. If you have any questions about anything Middle East related, just send me an email. You've all got it. But hopefully that has helped you, and I will see you very soon, hopefully. Bye bye.